Alright, let's start ranking them then. So, for ESFP, I'm going to put them in the category of the beta, because what's really great about this type is they always seem to be able to deflect a lot of the social attention onto themselves. It's like in a video game, they're the tank character and they're just taking all the damage, so you don't have to deal with any of those conversations, they'll just do them all for you, which is kind of nice. They're the centre of attention, but sometimes they can get a bit much. These are the types that might actually sort of leave you alone at a party because they've got into it too much, and that's not something you want to happen as an introvert. So yeah, generally I'm going to be wanting to go with these types, but it's not going to be the best necessarily, but it's generally pretty solid, which is why I've gone for a B. Then with ENTJ, I think these types are a do I have to come. This is probably one of all the types, mostly probably because I'm not INTJ. A lot of these times it feels like this type can overshadow you because they're just an extroverted version, and they kind of, anything you want to say, they'll just sort of say it first, say it faster, and you kind of don't feel like you have really a role in the conversations a lot of the time because an ENTJ is just there saying it all. That can kind of be frustrating, so that's why it's a D tier. I mean, it can be sort of chill, you can be kind of almost on equal level with them a lot of the time, and whereas the other types, for the extroverts, it feels like they're quite the ones in control of the social situation. With the ENTJ, it does feel kind of balanced, which is why I've gone for D tier, because it's like there is some benefit there, but it's generally not going to be great. With the ESTP, I've gone with F tier, find someone else. They've kind of got all of the negatives about the ESFP here, but at the same time they can kind of be quite harsh and sort of crazy with what they do. They're not kind of involving you a lot of the time, they're kind of just very loud, I've noticed, because it can be hard as an introvert to actually get a word in when you're around these types because they're doing just all of the talking, and like they're not including you at all, which is kind of why it just can lead to a very negative experience going out. So that's why I've gone with that. With ENFP, I've gone with C tier, considering touching grass, because like they can be quite good, but at the same time, sometimes I've noticed with ENFPs with the extroverted feeling dominant function, they're just too nice. They're constantly checking up on you, hey, you look like you're struggling in this social situation, you know, and they're just constantly making you aware of how bad you're doing in any sort of social situation. They're not trying to offend you, they just like are constantly looking out for you a bit too much, and also they might not even make you go out of your comfort zone enough because they're being too sort of conforming and like, oh, if you don't want to come out, you don't have to come, which is kind of nice, but at the same time you sort of do need that push a lot of the time. Then with ESTJs, these are just extrovert. I mean, they don't have the same sort of going out sort of thing as a lot of the other types, and I think these are the type probably most likely to make me schedule when we're going to meet up, and as an introvert I'm probably going to not want to actually go when it comes. So these types, they might be able to say, hey, in a week's time we're going to hang out, and then it gets to a week's time and I'm like, I do not want to go at all, I just don't feel like it, my social battery is just drained, I'm not going to do it. So that's kind of why I place them in that tier. With ESFJs, I place them B tier, because they don't have as many of the flaws that ENFJs have, because they have this sort of drive to make sure you actually do get out of the house that ENFJs don't really have in the same way. So they're still going to be sort of looking after you and making sure you're doing okay, but that at the end of the day they do have this sort of need to actually, you need to do this, you need to push yourself a bit out of your comfort zone and actually sort of interact with society. They also have the same perks all the time of an ESFP, is they'll kind of just do a lot of the conversations for you, which is nice, and they'll sort of bring you and include you a lot of the time. But at the same time they do have some of the drawbacks of the ENFP. ENFJ, so that's going to be kind of why they're not any higher up, because they are still extroverted feeling dominant. One thing, I guess, just for completeness sake, I'd say, because these are the same type, same tier, that basically I'm going to put ESFPs slightly higher, just because you can also have the level of learning from them and seeing how they interact so well, and just a centre of attention and everything, and you can kind of absorb some of that energy from them, which is kind of nice, and just improve yourself in that way, which you don't really get in the same way from ESFJs. Okay, great. Then with ENTP, I've gone with A always, because if these types are doing something, then yeah, I'll do it. But the issue, like the only thing stopping them from being S tier really, is these types are actually one of the most extroverted types. So honestly, they're probably not going to be encouraging me to go out as much, because they themselves are probably inside a lot of the time. So when they are going out, sure, I'll come with them, and yeah, whatever they're doing, it's probably going to be amazing. But I'm probably not going to be actively pushing to go out, if that makes sense. And then finally, ENFP, S tier. I'm going to be actively asking, hey, can we hang out? Because they just have this level of chaos and excitement. Just, it's always something different, always something new, and we can connect on an intuitive level. It's not just going out for the sake of going out. It always seems to serve some sort of purpose. These types, they also have kind of the ENTP's level of not always wanting to be out, but they kind of do have a lot of the benefits of the other extroverted types, like with the ESFPs and ESFJs sort of centre of attention thing. But they're not a centre of attention in the same way. They're in an intuitive sense of being centre of attention. So they are kind of trying to constantly bounce off your ideas, and hey, here's this random person, do you want to talk to them? And yeah, it's just sort of an enjoyable chaos, I guess. And it doesn't feel like going out in the same way that it does with a lot of the other types. It doesn't feel like my social battery is being drained in the same way.